Welcome to Unscripted, where the story behind the journey matters most, where we don't just talk about the future, we humanize it. I'm your host, Leslie Mota, and this show is sponsored by WACME. Tonight isn't just about business or titles, it's about identity, resilience, and what it really means to build something that lasts. Because behind every brand, every movement, every name we recognize, there's a story. A story shaped by where you come from, what you've been through, and the moments that force you to either break or evolve. We're talking about someone who started in service, walking real streets, seeing real life up close, someone who understood community not as a concept, but as a responsibility. And then life shifted unexpectedly in a way that could have stopped everything, but instead became the pivot into something greater. From the Bronx, rooted in culture, family, and purpose, to stepping into rooms where ownership, identity, and power are defined differently. Navigating spaces where not many people look like you, while still choosing to show up, speak up, and build anyway. Not just for personal success, but to open doors for others coming behind. This is about more than law, more than business strategy. This is about ownership in its deepest form. Who owns your name, your ideas, your story, your culture, and what happens when you don't? Because in a world moving faster than ever, where creators, founders, and builders are putting everything on the line, the question becomes real simple. Are you just building, or do you actually own what you're building? So tonight we go beyond the surface into the mindset, the discipline, the purpose, and the responsibility that comes with protecting not just a brand, but a legacy. So tonight we go unscripted with Pablo Segarra.
Yeah,
Pablo, amigo, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I feel like the last time we spoke, I didn't have this many gray hairs, so that's how I'm doing, I guess.
My friend, I'm getting lots of gray hairs. I think we spoke, what was it, a while ago, right? And ever since
Yeah,
then, I feel like we've aged, what, 10 years?
yeah. You don't look it, but I do. So yeah,
Oh
you
my
went
God.
in reverse. I think you went in reverse, but I'm going forward.
You know,
Uh,
life, I don't know what happens, but you've been doing so much. I think that you've lived multiple lives, like from service to law to
yeah.
building your own firm. And at what point did everything shift for you? Like, what did that moment really teach you about ownership, not just legally, but personally?
Yeah, and thank you for the great intro. That's probably one of the better intros I've ever had. So that's really cool. I need that video. It's
Thank you.
I would say that there was a few defining moments, right? One of the major defining moments of my life was that I am a retired police officer, born and raised in the Bronx, Puerto Rican, and I was a police officer in Washington Heights for over 10 years, and then I served for 13 years in the NYPD. Um, I unfortunately got hurt in a really bad car accident. So I was at work, and another vehicle crashed into mine and knocked me into a light pole. So imagine feeling like you're on top of the world, you're 26, 27, you're in the best shape of your life, right? You're in uniform outside, women know this stuff all over you, right? Like all this attention, you feel great. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you literally hit a light pole and you can't walk, right? I was in physical therapy for almost 7 years, multiple surgeries, coming back and forth between the hospitals and the emergency rooms and physical therapy, and feeling like a crippled old man at when I was literally in the best shape of my life.
Yeah.
That single moment really changed the rest of my life from there. After that, I decided to go to law school because I didn't recognize myself. I was scared to be a police officer at that point because my body was continuously breaking down, and
Mhm.
it does a lot for your identity as to who you think
Yeah.
you are. You have this like linear path of you're going to be something specific for 20, 25 years and retire and then figure it out, and then that gets cut in half, right?
Mhm.
So it really woke me up as to how do I define who I am, because the NYPD at that point was defining me, because
Mhm.
since I was hurt, I cannot be out in the street. I cannot just be a regular police officer. I had to be behind a desk. I had to be at specific places. I had to do certain things. and it just wasn't what I was about. I wanted to be out in the street. I come from family of activists pretty much, and I couldn't do that anymore. So that
Did you
was
have
good.
no, go ahead.
That was probably the most defining moment for me, where it completely just uprooted and changed my life.
Did you have like any mental and emotional lows where it's just you didn't even know like what you were going to do and how did you get out of it? Because you
Yeah,
were so young. That was such a young age. I mean, that is like the beginning of your life.
yeah. It was tough. It was very difficult. I did have tons of nightmares for years. I had tons of guilt from the accident because my partner was also in the car with me, and luckily the guy still loves me, but he had a shattered femur bone, so he has a metal rod from his hip to his knee. So it was a lot for me to process at such an early age, and my family really got me through it.
Mhm.
There was a few low moments, unfortunately, even though I come from an amazing family, and this is just kind of the duality of all of us, even though I come from an amazing family, very successful, very educated, very loving family, my father was the person that knew me the most in my life. He was more than my best friend. I was a Vietnam veteran, has two master's degrees, and at the same time, he was a drug addict for some time. So that gene runs in my family, and there
Mhm.
was a point that after one of my surgeries, like my prescription for like the pharmacy was like up, like it was done, right? And
Yeah.
I found myself like going to the pharmacy and arguing with the pharmacist to try to get another batch of pills because I did need them, but I didn't really need them at the same time.
Yeah.
And I found myself getting like aggressive, and I just stopped. I immediately stopped right there, and I just ripped up the prescription in front of them. I just walked away, and I told myself I'm never taking pills again. Because I was always scared of that gene, of just the addictive gene in me,
Yeah.
and that was probably one of the lowest times for me. And then another time was just, I think I just like broke down one time in physical therapy. Like it
Mhm.
was one of my stints in physical therapy, and I felt just helpless because it's like, like you said, you're in your mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s, probably at that point, and I was in a hospital bed again, and it was like what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
So I needed something extremely positive, but another extreme challenge. And that's why I decided to go to law school, because I knew it was going to be positive, but I knew it was going to take every single ounce of me to do it,
Yeah.
because I went to law school at night while I was a cop in the daytime on top of that to make it even harder.
Damn. So after your accident, everything changed for you at in that very moment. And of course, stating like you feel lost and all the emotions. Do you ever look back now and feel like that was probably like a redirection in your life?
So one of my oldest friends, right? That's actually he's out on the West Coast, and I saw him about a year ago in San Diego. Um, it was late night, right? This is the guy that like in my 20s, like I was going clubbing with, right? So he knows me very well. We were just by 1 or 2 in the morning or something like that. We both had a couple of drinks, and we're just kind of catching up and talking about old times and this and that. And he's like, man, I think that accident, I hate to say this, but I love you. That accident was probably the best thing that ever happened to you. And I looked at him like, what do you mean, man? Like, what are you talking about? No, it wasn't. But the way he broke it down was like,
Yeah.
I'm not making fun of you. It was that like you went through that, and you realize you had the resiliency to get through a lot more than what you thought you did. And like what else it like what's like what more difficult stuff are you going to go through than having to relearn how to walk again? Like what's harder than that? And so it was definitely a redirect. I wouldn't say I'm like 100% into church and faithful and all that, but I do believe
Yeah.
in higher powers, and I do believe in ancestors and spiritual. I would say more than anything, and that was definitely somebody telling me to get my life in a different direction. And yeah, I'm grateful for it in a certain way,
Yeah.
because it put me through a lot, but I'm in a much better place than I ever was.
It's situations that that really test your mental endurance, your physical endurance, everything. It's like you give everything to overcoming that and succeeding in whatever you have to get back on your feet. And look at you. It's like now where you are, what you're doing, what you're accomplishing. And it's like if you look back, where would you be now if you were still that police officer?
I don't know. That's what it's such a crazy question because I've thought about this numerous times.
Yeah.
And my early 20s was a very different time frame. And I grew up in New York in the 80s and 90s when it was a crack era, when it was extremely dangerous. We just came out of like the when I was born, it was like we just came out of like some of the most dangerous times in the history of the city or whatever.
Mhm.
And my late teens and my early 20s were filled of a lot of hanging out, a lot of going out on a Wednesday night and coming home on a Monday night and basically trying
Yeah.
to figure out how to deal with being hungover every day. Yeah, it's real. And I think that I wasn't focused. My focuses were in other places, and I didn't feel like I could actually handle a lot of the challenges that I wanted to place in front of me to become a better person, right?
Mhm.
And I think that if I would have just stayed in the police department, I would have had none of these extreme changes that forced me to do something differently. I don't know. I don't know if I would have had some sort of horrible car accident outside of work that would have killed me because I was drunk. I don't know. I don't know if it would have been that I would have made some sort of mistake at work. I don't know. I don't know.
Mhm.
And as you mentioned before, like as I mentioned before, in a weird way, I'm almost grateful that I'm not grateful of the accident, but I'm grateful of what my response to it was.
And the growth thereafter. What was the hardest identity to let go when you look back? The officer, the protector, or the version of you that felt certain?
You are your questions are on point today. I didn't expect this on a Friday night. So I think I think it was I had you know what I had a recent conversation with one of my old partners at work, and we met up a couple of months ago, and we had a similar conversation. It's definitely the police officer. That's
Mhm.
definitely the identity that was the hardest to step away from. I would find myself even a couple of years ago, like introducing myself as a retired cop first, as
Yeah.
opposed to saying I'm an intellectual property attorney. So now, like, I introduce myself as an intellectual property attorney, and then as the conversation goes along, I say, "Oh yeah, I was a retired cop too." But that wasn't the case for a long time for me, and I think
Yeah.
it's definitely that because in a in a weird kind of way, when you go from your life or somebody else's life
Mhm.
matters at that specific moment, everything else you kind of, I wouldn't say you don't care about it, but you don't see it to the level of like the level of just like extreme emergence, right? Like the circumstance that you're in at that point, you just kind of bypass it. It doesn't bother you.
Yeah.
And when you have like, somebody like has a knife to somebody's neck and you have to figure out how the hell you're going to get the knife down without killing both of them, that's a little bit different than me dealing with the contract, right? So it's a
Yeah.
little bit different than me having the time to sit there and research a contract. And I think that's why a lot of my clients like to work with me because
Yeah.
I don't make a big deal a lot of things and I'm actually able to talk a lot of clients down and let them know that look, we'll figure this out in 24 hours. We're not going to do it right now, but we'll figure it out in 24 hours. Let's just figure it out together. And that's a lot different position to be in than having to make sure that I make sure immediately that this person stays alive in front of me. Those are two different situations for me.
That's crazy. I don't know how you guys do it, honestly, but it's scary. It's a scary world. Okay,
Yeah.
so you've often spoken about imposter syndrome. What did that voice sound like in your head and how did you quiet it? Because I think a lot of us go through that, and we either let it consume us or we learn how to shut it down and move on from it. How do you quiet it?
Um, I try to turn those those like traits about me that
Hmm.
imposter syndrome tells me I'm less than. I flip
Yeah.
them, and I try to turn myself and say, no, this is something specific about me. This is something special about me. This is something that somebody's going to pay more money for. Somebody's going to see something in me. Somebody's going to want to work with me for. And a good example is I just had I had a meeting earlier today. I'm doing a talk with a group of Latino lawyers next week, right? And
Yeah.
one of the topics of conversation was I deal with a lot of international business. So I have a lot of clients from other parts of the world that want to file trademarks and do their paperwork in the United States. So I help them. And the fact that I'm one of the few Latinos in the entire country that can do that, there's not a lot of intellectual property attorneys that are Latino, and there's not a lot of intellectual property attorneys that speak Spanish in general, Latino or not. So that's a piece that you would think is an imposter syndrome, right? Because I grew up bilingual. I say I speak Spanglish first. I don't speak English proper. I don't speak Spanish proper. I kind of have this weird mix
Right there with
sometimes.
you.
Yeah, like we have this weird mix where it just kind of like whatever
Yeah.
comes out is what you're going to get.
Yep.
Um, but I've been able to turn that into a lot of business. I've been able to get clients in Mexico that want to work with me, in Dominican Republic, in Puerto Rico, in parts of Miami that they speak Spanish first. And just because of the fact that I understand the culture, I'm part of the culture, I'm from the culture,
Yeah.
and the fact that I can communicate with them in various languages and understand where they come from as well and what's important to them, that's a superpower. But you would think that that's imposter syndrome telling you that because I have a strong New York accent, right? And because I speak Spanish like a Puerto Rican, like a Dominican, like an American, right? Speaking three different ways with three different accents. You
Yeah.
would think those are all like negative things, but no. I walk in and I say this is who I am, and it's helped me to get through a lot of that imposter syndrome.
Have you ever found it difficult, in the area that you are because you are Latino and because, that there could be that language barrier? And like you said, sometimes we do have difficulties speaking that proper English. And then when you're speaking the Spanish and then you can't find those words, sometimes they come out wrong or the accents, because that happens to me a lot. Do you felt that at any moment that probably wanted to almost stop you from taking the next step, and what pushed you through it anyway?
Yeah, it's I so for almost 2 years I worked with this company called Markia, and I left. I have my own firm now, but we were number two in the world for intellectual property. We had 120,000 clients. I was managing at one point 1,500 clients at one time, right? Um, and I did have a few interesting conversations with clients that actually wanted to see my paperwork to see if I was really an attorney or not. You
Oh
know,
my
yeah,
gosh.
and this is like on a video call, right? So it's like they want to see my paper, and then in the emails, of course, it's like my picture is in the email, so I look how I look. I'm not going to change how I look.
Yeah.
I have curly hair. I look like a Puerto Rican guy, and they would ask me in the paper, in the emails sometimes too, you know. And so it would bother me, right? And
Yeah.
there was nobody I could really talk to about that because I was the only
Mhm.
one that was going through it, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think that also, there was a specific. There are some times earlier on in my career that I had those issues because I was also part of the New York State Bar Association. We had a task force on crypto, and that's why I started working a lot of my career in crypto. That's how we met.
Yeah.
And I've done at this point 60 to 70 different conferences, and we were training a lot of attorneys on artificial intelligence and crypto in New York State, well, before ChatGPT was out, before it was a big thing, when nobody knew what was happening with crypto, right? I was been there
Mhm.
from, not let's say day one, but from the beginning. And I had to give I had to give a kind of a presentation on this, right? And I was like stuttering back and forth because it's a room full of suits. It's like all these older white guys, and I'm just sitting here with my Jordans. I got a blazer and a t-shirt. Like I didn't wear a tie, you know. And
Yeah.
that moment, like I looked around the room and I was like, I did get nervous. It has hit me a couple of times.
Yeah.
Um, but what I find is that there are people that are in my corner that probably have been through it as well, and I lean on them. A very good friend of mine, Sherry, is Sherry was the previous president of the New York State Bar Association. Short little, 5'2" woman, right? Jewish lady, and she was the one that brought me in, and we had a lot of conversations about that because you can imagine early on her career, she went through that as well. So I always think that when we have those issues, we should lean in on those that have been through it before.
Do you ever look back at going through all these issues and be like, you know what, I'm meant to go through these obstacles or whatever we want to call them? Because then you can be that guidance for the next person that's coming in after you that may
Yeah.
look like you, whether it's a female or a male.
Yeah, I think that at the moment when I went through all that, no, right? Like it was more like the why me, right? It's like I've been so good to people. Why like why am I getting like chastised for this? Um, but I think now it's I speak on it as something that I've gone through and some sort of guidance that I can provide. I do get a lot of messages. I do get a lot of people reaching out of younger Latino attorneys, not just Latinos, but younger attorneys in general that come
Mhm.
from where we come from. Um, and I think it's important to put the time aside for that. As part of my volunteer service, I'm on the board of New Eurekan Poets Cafe and the Dominican Bar Association of New York. So with
Congratulations, I saw that.
Yeah, thank you. So for both of those venues, they're different, right?
Yeah.
One of them I'm just talking to younger creatives all day, and the other one I'm talking to younger lawyers all day. And lawyers and creatives we're two different people. Um, but I do find that I share my story as much as I possibly can, to the extent that I'm able to do it, because of what you just said. There's going to be somebody that is going to go through
Mhm.
something, um, and I may not be there to help them, but in the back of my head, the words of the mentors that I've had and the people that have helped me has gotten me through that. So I'm hoping that I can drop some knowledge and some words and some people to be able to get them through something.
Oh, absolutely. I've gone through certain situations like that, working in the corporate world. My first name, nobody really knows, what I am until they see me. Then they see me and it's a whole different story, right? How do
Yeah.
you mentally like toughen up? Because when you're going through it, it is discouraging. And
Yeah.
sometimes, you have those moments where you do want to give up. How did you mentally prepare yourself or tell yourself, like, you know what, I am going to keep pushing through, even through those moments?
A lot of it was and is my family.
Mhm.
I've been blessed to have a family that maybe didn't keep me out of trouble, but kept me out the streets, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I did grow up in a time frame in New York that, as I mentioned, it was extremely dangerous. And a lot of my friends and family are no longer here, right? Or they're
Mhm.
whatever reasons as a result of that. And I feel that I've been blessed, and I want to be able to make sure that I kind of give it back in a certain way, right? Where it's
Yeah.
like I've had role models. Thank God I've had role models that I can look up to, right? As I was growing up, and this is the person that I want to be like. This is who I want to be. Um, Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't have that role model viewership from their parents for whatever reasons,
Mhm.
and I've been blessed that I do. And my family, of course, we all have gathered around my grandparents when they were alive. I got to know every single one of my grandparents. They all made the trip from Puerto Rico to New York, looking for better lives. So it's almost like a weight that I put on myself purposely,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like I'm not standing here by myself, right? Like there's people upstairs that are looking out for me, and we're kind of like witchy in my family. We always say, where it's like when all of my grandparents passed away, the time frame they passed away, they all came to visit me when they died, right? It sounds weird, I know, whatever, but they all came to visit me one way or the other when they passed away. So I know that I'm very connected to my ancestors, and I want to make sure that I put a smile on their face, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a lot of that. It's a lot of family members that I have a weight on, in a good way, in the most positive way possible.
What do people really misunderstand about what it really takes to sit in rooms you're in today?
Yeah. Um, the power of the word no. A lot of people, I get offers to do stuff, I don't know how many times a week. And I used to say yes to a lot, right? Because I wanted to be everywhere. And then I started to realize that in me being everywhere, I'm pulling away from the things that really matter to me, one, and two, really will improve my career, improve my pocket, right? Something like that. And so, what a lot of people don't realize is that the answer to it is the answer to some sort of success, or some sort of positivity in your life. It's not necessarily saying yes to everything. It's figuring out what to say yes to. A
Mm-hmm.
very good friend of mine told me something some time ago that stuck in my head too. He's like, Pablo, it's not 100% yes. The minute I hear it, then it's 100% no for me instantaneously, right? If I got to think about it, then that means no, I'm not doing it. So like when you asked me in the show, as we mentioned earlier, you asked me, I was like, yeah, of course, obviously, I'm going to do that, right? But it's like, but I got some other stuff that I got invited to this week that I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. That's okay. And I got other stuff invited to in May that like, I'm like, nah, that's okay. I'm not doing that. So I think that to be able to get into whatever you consider to be successful for your life,
Mm-hmm.
people have to realize that it's not the yes, it's learning how to say no that will really give you the time frame to catapult yourself to the places you want to get to,
Oh, freaking absolutely. I want
right?
to shift it a little bit because, you talk a lot, and I've heard this, we haven't spoken for a while, but I remember during that course that we were around in the same circles for a long time. And then
Mhm.
at one point, it shifted and you started talking a lot about ownership, and you
Mhm.
talked about owning what defines you. When did you realize most people don't actually own their own story? And I remember when you first said this, a while back, like a lot of people don't own their story, and you have to own your own story.
Yeah. I credit it to a couple of different places. My time of I became a lawyer in the crypto industry, right? Like I
Mhm.
really, that's where my roots are, right? When NFTs came about, like I became an NFT lawyer, right? Because I was in Miami at the right time when they literally were just like first became something. I was in, always forget the name of the damn hotel, but they used to have like Wednesday tech nights on in Wynwood, and I was there and I met like a group of founders, and all they kept talking about was NFTs. I'm like, what the hell? What are you guys talking about, right? So
Yeah.
I've been in it from the beginning, right? And I think that ownership, I took pieces from that, right? Because me, from my legal mind, I'm like, well, this is great that a you own a JPEG, right? At that time, it was a big deal, right? You own a JPEG, but there was a lot of attorneys that were like, "What's the copy and paste?" Right? You can just copy and paste it. You don't really own it, right? And then we kind
Right.
of got deep into, well, there's metadata behind and all this type of stuff. But at the back of my head, I'm like, but if whatever server is holding this this piece of technology, right? Not just crypto. I'm talking about if you're on Spotify and you have a list of songs that you've been paying for. I've seen this happen with other founders. If you're on Instagram and you have 100,000 people following you, if you're on any really platform, and all of a sudden that platform in a second decides to drop you, all of a sudden, which happened recently to one of my clients, where she had a great following on Instagram. She had like 40,000 followers, and she was making money from it, and she's doing great. She had a restaurant, and then all of a sudden, one day to the next, AI got implemented into Instagram, and it deleted her page. She lost everything, right? So she had to restart. So people were like, "What's going on with your page?" And she couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. I had to make phone calls. I tried to get somebody on the call, on the line, emails, all types of stuff, right? And so when you think about it from the technology standpoint, that's one way.
Mhm.
Where the younger generation now, they're into vinyl, they're into CDs, right? Because it's a physical piece. It's something you can pick up and take with you and own and resell and clean off, and right. And thinking about it from the technology standpoint, that's one way, right? The other way for me is that um, I come from the Bronx, and we have had big parts of two of the biggest movements in history, which is salsa and hip hop, right? And
Mhm.
yet that story has never really been clearly told. There's always controversy with both of them, right? With salsa, it's like, who started salsa? Is it Cuba, Puerto Rico? Is it New York? Is it some other place? With hip hop, it's like, well, who was actually there when it created it? Were Latinos involved or not? And so the cultural part also, to me as well, it's like, if you're able to create something, you need to be able to put it down on paper now, because at least you have a timestamp, you have a document that you could say in 2026 on April 24th, I created this, I own this, right? I don't just see what I do as regular paperwork. I see it as like, we're timestamping your creations, we're timestamping your passions, we're timestamping your businesses, right? And to me, it's why I'm so passionate about the work I do. So I'll say it's like those two standpoints, like the technology piece where I find that now we don't own anything. We really just don't. It's kind of, we're just paying for streaming services. And if something drops, we lose it all. And then from the cultural standpoint, it's like the story that the background that I come from, those stories have not been properly told. And I'm still waiting for Netflix to do like a huge series on salsa. Like I want to see like all of the salseros. I want to have a huge like 10 different season episode thing going on. So I'm waiting for that Netflix deal to come in.
Soon, hopefully. Let's put a petition out there. But okay, so I remember coming into this space, and when I came into this space, Pablo, it was a hot mess.
Yeah.
And nobody understood about
Yeah.
IP rights. Like nobody understood about copyrights, none of that stuff. And it
No.
wasn't even a thing, it's like we didn't even think that there could be any legal issues behind it, nothing. Everybody's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, it's on the blockchain, decentralized. And I remember it was a group of you. It was you and I was it Liz or
Pablo.
Liz?
Oh yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Elizabeth Pablo, of course. Yeah, 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 yeah.
a few of you that started talking about IP rights, copyrights, ownership. And I was like, wait, is this even a thing in this space? And I think IP ownership in crypto, a lot of us don't understand the difference between owning a token and owning the rights behind it.
Yeah.
And I think this is where I learned a lot from you. I mean, is this still a going on thing that you see in this space, or are you even doing any more work in crypto?
Yeah, I am. I still have a few clients that want to file trademarks with me, that do some intellectual property rights, assignment agreements. So I guess like to take it down to a few different directions, to take it down to the founder standpoint, it doesn't matter
Mhm.
what industry you're in, right? Whether you have started WagMe, whether you have started Unscripted, whether you have started Apple, it doesn't matter. The founders come together, right?
Mhm.
So humans come together to actually create a company, right? Now, unless you're a
Yeah.
solo founder, but even then, there's still an issue there. The creation of those two people, let's say, when they're coming together, who owns the creations that are coming into the company? Because
Mhm.
I've created a lot of stuff, you've created a lot of stuff, and now we're going to work together. So therefore, we need to put down on paper, well, what are the things you're bringing to the company? What are the things that I'm bringing to the company? And then what happens to the things that we create together within the company, right? So it's simple as that. So with that template, it doesn't matter what industry I'm in, because all founders go through that. Every single founder that I work with, the first thing I tell them is we need to create an IP assignment agreement, because if you're putting your paperwork together, when you get to the point that you have gotten your all of your paperwork up, and now you want to start receiving funding, right? The actual investors, they're going to ask for that agreement. They're going to say, well, do you own all of your intellectual property from the company? Do you own the
Mhm.
trademarks to your name, your logo? Where's your IP assignment agreement? Because what if you get a founder that, imagine like I'm coming in with all this like legal knowledge, and I've created some sort of huge piece of the company that it's already mine, and I just blindly give it to the company. You could do that if you want to, but we need to put that down on paper at least to make sure, because if there becomes a disagreement down the line and I say, well, remember, I brought you this, and you tell me, no,
Mhm.
you didn't. Well, then how are we going to argue that out, right? So it's like getting all that down on paper, whatever industry you're in. Crypto is always very interesting to me. It will forever be interesting to me, because you can't really trademark like a coin. It's hard, because what's the purpose behind it? You're trademarking a currency, right? And the US doesn't allow you to trademark a currency, right? So It's a little different. But
So,
if you create a company based around that currency, you can trademark the other things that you do. Let's say you have merch. Let's say you do create an app as a result of it, right? Those things you
mhm.
can trademark around it 100% and nobody could use it. But if you want to just do a token that doesn't serve another purpose than just be a token, it's very difficult to trademark that and protect it.
Can you trademark or copyright a logo? Say that you're
Yes.
not doing anything, you're just doing the logo and then you're launching the token. Are you able to do it with just that?
I as as lawyers, I hate using this term, but I'm gonna tattoo it like on the back of my head somewhere and just point at it.
Yeah.
It depends.
Yeah.
If you want to just use it as only a token, nothing else, it's just currency. No, probably not, right?
Yeah.
But like I said, if you want to put it on T-shirts, if you want to put it on some sort of, let's say you're going to create, even with that, you're going to do a YouTube channel, right? Let's say you're going to do after that, you're going to do some sort of like animation piece, right? Like there's a bunch
Mhm.
of different things that you can do with it. You just can't do it with the token. And
Yeah.
I always compare it to the cannabis industry. Cannabis is still technically illegal on the federal landscape, right? Going across all the states, it's illegal. You technically cannot trademark anything cannabis related because it's still a drug. But
Yeah.
on a state level, it's legal. So therefore, on the state, you can trademark it, but on federally across the 50 states, you can't, right? So it always depends on what are you planning to do with this. I need to understand that first, and then I can give you the better advice to say, well, I suggest that you create some merch, like if even if you don't want to create merch, like let's figure out it. Let's do some t-shirts, something to show your ownership of that.
Yeah. What are the biggest legal mistakes that you've seen founders making since you've been here for a while, in
Yeah.
this space or Web3? I hate calling this space Web3. I'm like, what the fudge is even Web3? Does Web3
I
even
know
like,
at this point. I know,
can we
right?
just find something different? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
just gonna say blockchain, but like, what are the biggest legal mistakes that you've seen founders making, when they are bringing their product or when they're building here or they just
Yeah.
started building their business here before the outside world?
Yeah, there's a few mistakes that continuously pop up in kind of like different pockets, right? For me,
Yeah.
I would say the first thing is always, if you're going to do business, please do it under the name of a company that you've created. Do not do business under your personal name. And I've been yelling at people since I walked into crypto about that, right? Like that's the first thing, because the entire crypto industry was like, what do you mean we need to create a company? Yes, you need to create a company to do business. That's the point of it. If you do it personally under your own name, then what happens is that if there is ever an issue that you're sued as a result of it, a court will technically be able to go after your house, your car, you personally, because you're personally being sued. But if you have it under a business and a court goes into, and something happens as a result of it, a court can only take the assets of the business, right? So I
Mhm.
still see that in the various industries that I work in. The second thing I'll say is that when it comes to working with other people, right? In any aspect, if you're doing intellectual property, if you're just doing a collaboration, if you're hiring somebody to do something for you, we should put everything down on paper. It doesn't necessarily have to be some huge 20-page contract. It, as I'm going to go against my own interest here, it can just be something in chat gbt, like it could be something very simple, um, but it needs to be down on paper. A good example is that if you're doing a logo and you have paid somebody to give you a logo, right? That
Mhm.
needs that transaction, that interaction needs to be documented somewhere, whether it's just in an email that says, I gave you this for that, thank you so much, and you can show that chain that you own it. I always tell my clients, if you're going to hire somebody to create a logo, make sure that you get it on paper signed that they are doing this for you. And that could just be a sentence, right? It's not that big of a deal. But getting things down on paper that you have agreed to as soon as possible, it's why we get told when we go uh, taught when we go to law school that like even if I take this after a conversation, let's say this is like a bar napkin, and after you and me have talked, and I sit there and I'm like, you get this, I get that, this is the date, this is the time, sign here. Like technically that's a legal document, right? So it's not
Yeah.
that hard either to get it done. It's very like low, it's like a low cost of entry on that, you know?
So do conversations like, in crypto,
Yeah.
there's the lack thereof documentation,
Yeah. All the
that
time. All the time.
DMs, but everybody
Yeah.
does business through DMs, telegrams. I started
Yeah.
doing business through email again, and some people call me dinosaur or crazy. But when you understand the legality behind that and the, CYA, but can they enforce DMs on X or LinkedIn or Telegram?
So one of my colleagues some time ago in the crypto space, she kept saying she's like, I can't wait until they bring like Telegram chats like into the courtroom, you know, and it happened. There's a couple of cases where Telegram chats were evidence in court, right? So it's yes, but at the same time, if you're trying to prove something, right,
Yeah.
and you're covering CYA, right, and you're trying
Hmm.
to prove something down the line, what's the easier method to do it? Is it I'm going to pull up this email that says the date and the time and the whole conversation from the day one that we spoke about it, right? Or
Yeah.
am I going to have to go through Telegram and maybe we're in a group chat and I got to sort out 35 different things and maybe somebody deleted something? How can I prove they deleted it? I don't know how to. Am I going to get Telegram? Like you're going to reach out to Telegram and get the data behind it? It's encrypted, right? So it's like why you can start the conversation in the
Hmm.
DMs, start the conversation in the Telegram. Sure, that's not a problem, right? Text messages, phone, whatever you want to do. But the final like agreement, I always recommend emails, please, 100%, because even if it's just one email that sends out the actual documentation, because you have a timestamp for it, nobody can really. It's very difficult to go and like change a timestamp on an email. Like I've never had that happen to me or seen that happen to anybody. Anyway, I'm sure some hacker can do it, but it's
I
very
mean, right
difficult.
now, the way Telegram is, especially if you're the owner of the chat, you can make those messages disappear within a certain time frame. So
Of
it's
course.
like the conversation that you had about the business, it's like, okay, it's gone unless you took a screenshot or document it or saved it. By the time you go back, that conversation's gone and you're like, wait, but this is not what we agreed on. So
Exactly. Exactly. And
it's the
and those
Wild
those are the
West.
issues. Those are a lot of the issues when it comes to that is that documentation. We need to consistently document and make sure that we have proof of of not necessarily the full conversation, but what we agreed to. That's
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
Pablo, do you think that giving too much IP freedom can backfire?
Um, I think that it all depends on the industry you're in. And I'll say that because that's a really good question. Because, for example, Bad Bunny is number one artist in the world, right? Yeah, he's
Hmm.
from Puerto Rico, thank God. But he's number one artist in the world, one of my favorites of all time, right?
Yeah.
Bad Bunny has probably a extremely strong media team, extremely strong management, right? They're doing awesome things, but he picks and chooses kind of who he wants to go after and who he wants to let go of, right? Let go free, right?
Hmm.
Um, there are some cases where people have put his face on a beer can in Florida, right? He went after them because you're literally using my image to create beer for you, and people are going to think that it's part of my team that's doing this, but it's not, right? Um, but yet, I find that there's people that are still mimicking him and still doing stuff that it technically he can own, but he chooses kind of not to and let them do it, right? And that's a decent example. But if you're on the way coming up, if you're like not Bad Bunny now, but you're Bad Bunny a couple of years ago, there may be
Hmm.
something that you create that you do, and Coca-Cola picks it up, and Coca-Cola doesn't give you $1 for it, right? But they run with it,
Hmm.
and people know that it's yours. Maybe they attribute it to you, maybe they don't, right? The one angle is to go after it and say, well, I'm going to sue you 100% because you used all of this, right? You used my song, my name, my whatever that is. You used it and you made all this money off of it.
Yeah.
Okay, do you know how much money it's going to take you to get into that courtroom and to get Coca-Cola to show you how much money they made from you, right? Like it's nearly impossible, right? And they're going to just agree to giving you a couple $1,000s and you walk away. But and I actually had this situation happen, not with Coca-Cola, with another pretty big client. My response to it and my advice was, let's approach them and get a collaboration deal. It was with a shoe brand, and I'm like, okay, I know they're using your image and it's clearly you. They're using it on their billboards, right? And like they didn't attribute it to it whatsoever. And it's clearly you and you have the actual picture. But instead of suing them and they're going to give you a couple $100, why don't we say, thank you. I appreciate it. I just happen to be a model. Let's do a deal together. And whether it's for payment, maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's, hey, I like the fact that I'm on all these other stores. Let's do some more work together, right? And let's do
Hmm.
more marketing from it. So I do think that there's a fine line between legal costs of how much it's going to cost you to do something and finding a way to be attributed to it without it costing you a dollar. And that's kind of the world that I live in all the time where I had somebody reach out to me. I actually doing a campaign myself for getting out my brand, right? My company. And I had another firm reach out to me and say, hey, that's the wording that we use actually. And we own it, right? We own the words to that. So in me thinking that through, I'm like, yeah, but I've been saying this for years. And I look through the paperwork and I'm like, oh, but I can prove that I've been doing this for years. But is it worth me spending money to fight against them to keep something that is not necessarily making me tons of money? It's going to cost me more money to sue them, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you guys won, even though I know I'm the rightful owner of it. But you know what? I'll take a step back and I'll make some other changes and I'll do something else with it. No big deal. But at least I know that I got on your radar and at least I know that it worked, right? Yeah.
Do you think that blockchain will change how IP is owned or enforced in the long term based
Yeah.
on?
Yeah. There's there's a lot of I had a bunch of flashbacks when you asked this question. That's why I kind of paused. Um, I've talked to a lot of lawyers throughout the years that have tried to figure this one thing out, right? Like how do we use the timestamps, the immutability of blockchain to be able to prove intellectual property in a much easier way than we already have it now, right?
Yeah.
And we were trying to pitch to the trademark office and the USPTO office, how do we incorporate blockchain? That was part of our job. That was part of our one of our campaigns with the New York State Bar Association was how do we incorporate this technology into the government of what we have already, right? They weren't very receptive, right? The other route they went was being extremely receptive to artificial intelligence. So they're using AI, they're finding ways to improve the system with AI. Blockchain still has this odd stain on it that a lot of just government offices don't want to touch so much. And I don't understand why, right? Because it's clearly a piece of technology that is going to provide transparency that cannot be changed, that will make things a lot smoother, right? And yet getting the right lobbyist in there, it's political to be able to actually accept that. It's difficult. So in a perfect world, in my mind, we would be using blockchain for everything that you can think of. I have, yeah, for real. I have been saying for the past couple of years, the government of Colombia at one point was trying to incorporate blockchain into proving ownership of homes.
Oh, wow.
Why? Because Latin America, there's been a huge issue, and almost every Latino has it in their family, one way or the other,
Hmm.
where this was Abuela's house, and Abuela gave this to her kid, but yet it was a kid from another person and blah 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 blah, and there right there's family drama
Oh
there,
yeah.
and it was a handshake deal, and nobody put it on paper, and she just moved in. So it's like Colombia went through that too, and Colombia was like, you know what? If we just put all these transactions on the blockchain, 100 years from now, nobody can say that that was my great grandmother's house, because no, the blockchain doesn't say that, right? So that was a very interesting, one of the most interesting use cases that I've ever seen for it, and unfortunately, it went nowhere for political reasons.
That's crazy. So eventually, can you see or could we see on-chain licensing becoming the standard?
I think I think it's going to depend on the next White House. I think
Yeah.
that for better or for worse, whatever people's thoughts are, the Trump administration has been pro crypto to an extent that I would have never thought possible, right?
I have my thoughts on
Incredibly.
that. Why?
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, like I said, for better or for worse, there's a lot of reasoning there. But for me to start my career as an attorney under a different president that was completely the opposite of this.
Mhm.
I mean, the fact that like we have gone through we've gone through these phases where everybody was getting locked up. I mean, there's all these founders were in jail, literally in jail, because they were saying they were selling securities without a license or all this nonsense. And at the back of my head, I'm like, but this is a government related license. Like
Mhm.
they not easily, but they can figure out a way to accept this. We're not like, this is not like your this is not this is not and I'm sorry to be controversial here, but this is not an argument of like abortion. Like
Yeah.
those are two different arguments, right? Like that's a physical thing, that's a human body, that's different. We're talking about a piece of technology that you're saying is doing one thing because you have the license and you're the one that's giving out the license to do it. So why can't you just change the license, right? It's like it
Yeah.
doesn't like, okay, so open the doors and change the license and accept it. So I do think that a lot of it depends. I do think we're at a point now that you know we're like, how can I put it? We're mature now, right? Like the
Mhm.
mature crypto conversation is basically like not decentralization versus law. It's like, how do we build digital ownership systems, right? That like people can work into their everyday lives. How do we do that? It's a lot of work, basically.
Oh, abso-freaking-lutely. In your opinion, do you think, or what industries do you think are going to be disrupted the most by tokenized IP?
Mm. Um, I think a lot of it is real world assets. I think that being able, well, when I say real world assets, I mean a couple of different things, right? Being
Mhm.
able to, tokenize this, right? There's like a DJ Osmo camera I got. It's a couple $100, right? But
Yeah.
it's not cheap either. Um, Being able to say, well, how do I prove this as part of my net worth, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do I do that? I can't. Like, it's an expense, right? The IRS is not going to come into my house and figure out how much this is, right? A bank is, I can't use this as collateral at a bank, right?
Mhm.
But what if I could? What if I can be able to figure out how to take physical assets and turn them into my digital portfolio to then do other things with, right? So I think that the banking industry, number one, it's already figuring that out. I mean, you have
Mhm.
all these major players from when you and me started in the industry were completely against it to now they're building their own, right? And I have some friends pretty high up in the banking industry too that, or every time we have a conversation, she's like, I can't even tell you the things that we're doing, because I will lose my job, like that
Yeah.
type of stuff. I also think that the I would hope that real estate as well, because real estate is such a, what I wish could be a more transparent industry, right? Um, sometimes you go and you buy a house, and yet you don't exactly know the time frame until you're going to get the home, right? It could be 3 months, it could be 6 months, it could be 9 months. You have an issue there, right? So it's like, how can we get the crypto and how can we get blockchain involved to be able to make that a much more transparent and uh, easier transactional industry to get that done.
I think we've come a long way from a few years back. What was it, 4 or 5 years ago? And remember when they first started talking about RWAs back then and, putting refinances on the blockchain and, coming from a lending institution and that background, I'm like, okay, but how are you going to put that? How are you going to put
Yeah.
certain type
How
of
are you going to protect the
documentation?
loans? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it was crazy. And then now the things that they're doing is just amazing how much we have evolved. RWAs, nobody really even understood what that meant or how it would work on the blockchain. And now it's like everywhere you see, it's like, oh, RWAs everywhere, and that's the future, etc. In
yeah.
your opinion, what does true digital ownership actually look like in the future?
So I have a remote firm, right? I am in Dominican Republic right now. I live most of the year here, and I go back to New York all the time. I go back to the States. My family's all in the States. I go back all the time for work, for different events. So you can always catch me in New York somehow, some way. And in that kind of cross-border relation life that I have, right? It involves, well, getting paid in dollars and having to figure out how to make the transactions into pesos, and then if somebody, even down here, there's people, my neighbor around the corner, he's selling his house for Bitcoin, right? Like he's like, I'll take dollars and I'll give you a discount if you give me Bitcoin, you know.
Oh, wow.
Um, so for me, it's like having the flexibility and the option to be able to use it digitally how I want, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I want to um, monetarily use my crypto to be able to, I don't know, do all of those things that I mentioned. If I could go a full day, right, in Dominican Republic and just use my crypto to put gas in my car, to go to the bodega, to go to the supermarket, to go out at night, to pay my mortgage, right? If I can do all of that, then that's like not necessarily that that's the only way to do it, but it's an option for me to do it, right? I think that that's important
Yep.
here. I'm not personally of the, I know there's some people that are, but I'm not personally of the mindset that we need to remove all US currency and replace it with digital. I would never say that. I think that people just need options to do those things, right? And then I think the other one too is that what we don't talk about a lot is with artificial intelligence in the intellectual property industry specifically, there's a niche of us that do, but most of the people don't think about it. It's name, image, and likeness. So it's all of what you're doing right now, you're recording it, it's being stored somewhere, right? So, what's to say that a person can't go through your transcript and copy and paste all your imagery and everything that I'm doing here, my whole background, and use an AI model to create something else, right? How do you protect that? I always give every time I go to conferences, I always give the example of I went to VidCon 2 years ago and I spoke there for a couple of days, and I walked in the room and the first thing I said was, I can walk through this entire room. I could take everybody's business cards. I could take all your YouTube channels. I could go do that. I can probably go to Claude or something and figure out a way to go through all your transcripts to learn everything about you. And then I'm going to just take the top 10 earners here, the top 10 people. I'm going to create a fake person. And then that's my business, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can you protect yourself from that? It's nearly impossible to do that. So for me, true digital ownership is finding ways for the laws to be put in place, for these systems to be put in place on the platforms that would prevent that. Because you are creating intellectual property right here as we're talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
I create intellectual property as we're talking. So it's like the digital ownership of it is having pieces in place to protect that in the world of AI that we're going into, that we're already in, but we're getting deeper and deeper into.
So this is almost like walking into the same chaos or similar chaos that we were walking into a few years ago
Yeah,
with crypto. Now
yeah,
we're walking, it's almost like it's a loop, right? But with
yeah,
AI, it's like if right now this is what you see on the timeline.
yeah,
Everything is AI. It's so easy to generate. They download your image and they put it through AI and the graphics are nice. It's like people do that for free, etc. But at the same token, if somebody creates something with AI, who actually owns it? Like, are we entering a world where ownership doesn't exist in the way that we think it does?
Yeah, and that's a great question because, first of all, I hate the Tai Chi ones. Have you seen that? Every time I open up my YouTube, it's like Tai Chi, or like my husband does Tai Chi, and he's a. It's like, bro, what are you talking? What is this crap? Like, I get so annoyed. I get so annoyed. I get so annoyed to that. We are one of the people that I listen to a lot is Prof G, Professor Scott Galloway. He has a show called Pivot on all the channels, a podcast. I listen to him a lot because it's really interesting conversations. And he is of the mindset of that people don't care about privacy anymore because they're willing to give it up to have access to all the technology we have. Because we're basically being trained and conditioned to just give up everything
Yeah.
to go on Instagram, right? And I do
Mhm.
remember that when we first started, I'm a little old school, so I go back to MySpace was my first platform was like MySpace, probably maybe even earlier than MySpace, but MySpace. And I do remember a time frame when parents were like, "No, I'm not putting my kid on in my Instagram. I'm not putting their face on. No, because I don't know what's going to happen from that." And so if you think about a generation of kids that have grown up with their faces on Instagram when they were babies, right? Well, they're going to grow up thinking there's nothing wrong with that, and therefore privacy, it is what it is. Who cares, right? So I
Mhm.
do think I'm not. As much as I work in AI, I'm not exactly very positive about AI. I think it's going to take a lot of jobs away from people. It already has. I've already seen it firsthand with various companies I've worked in. We've already seen it firsthand with some of the biggest companies in the world. I think we've lost about 40 to 50,000 jobs in the past couple of months from like Oracle and Disney, all these major companies. Um, and it's because we have a whole generation of younger people that don't value that the same way that the older generation did, right? And that's just
Yeah.
human, part of life. That's just human involvement. I joke around, but at the same time, I'm kind of annoyed by it. As my gray hairs are coming out more and more every day. Um, there was a recent study done by I don't remember who the study was done by, but it basically asked like everybody under 18, like what do you want to be when you grow up? And the number one answer was a YouTube star, like what you're doing.
What?
It was the number one answer, right? So if you think about that, it's like society as a whole, the younger generation is fine with it. They don't care. It's
Yeah.
okay, you know. So I don't know where that's going to take us going in the future. It is very difficult to own an AI duplication of yourself. It's hard to fight against that, right? How do we do that? The main the main mechanism that I'm hoping that we can figure out how to improve on is what's called right of publicity. So right
Mhm.
of publicity is basically like if you are a celebrity, that's really the only way it gets enacted. If you're a celebrity and somebody's using your image to make money off of it by endorsing a product that you had nothing to do with, right? Well, that is technically illegal in a bunch of states in the United States, right? And basically, as a celebrity, you can go after that person. But there's no federal right of publicity across every state. So if I'm doing something in a certain state, does that mean that I can get away with that as opposed to not doing it in another state? But everything's digital, right?
Yeah.
So like it's such a confusing industry for me when I see this conversation of how can I protect my digital twin, there's a lack of a better word. And the only thing I keep saying is we got to just work with what we have. We have to trademark your name. We have to trademark the name of your business. We have to trademark the logos that you're dealing with. We have to copyright the work that you have. And let's hope that you have enough protection that if it does happen to you, we can walk into a courtroom with all of that and say, this is all me. And there is a likelihood of confusion with what they're doing and with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So the answer is I don't know. That's the main answer. Is that I am nervous about it, and I'm hoping that we get some, smart political guy that's smarter than me that is like, hey, we need to fix this law and protect, at least protect younger kids from this, man.
Yes. Okay, Pablo. So is AI breaking IP laws faster than the law can keep up?
Yo, yes. Oh yeah, 100%. Oh yeah, that's not even a question. 100%. 100%. AI is basically like the things that I. So it's really interesting because I like the parallel to the early days of the crypto industry. That's a good point. Um, I met with a lot of founders in the crypto industry that
Mhm.
wanted to do not a lot. I'd say less than 10, but that
Yeah.
wanted to do some borderline illegal stuff
Oh my God.
and just put like crypto in front of it and basically say, well, nobody's going to know. What's the big deal? Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I've run into that in AI, right? Like I haven't seen anybody really come to me with some obviously illegal like business using AI, right? Like for the most part, people understand that if I go and I just copy and paste everything that Leslie is doing and I put it like for the most part they don't do it, right? Like thank God they don't do it. But at the same time, taking transcripts of all of our conversation, how would anybody even know that they took your entire transcript and stuck it into the AI and did something different? You wouldn't even know. So the thing is that again, yes, the answer to your question, the law is always going to be 20, 30 years behind technology. It's just never going to catch up. Um, and all we can work with in that way, in that with that mindset is that put everything down on paper. What can we protect? Everything that's within the law we can't protect now. And then everything we can protect in that contract, right? We have a thing called the four walls of the contract, right? Like
Yeah.
what is in the contract we can protect and proof of that. That's what we got to hone in on and focus. Um, but AI is, yeah, AI is already here and it's going to make things worse.
Oh, AI is here to stay and take over. But
Yeah.
okay, I use a lot of AI.
Yeah. Me
Who
too. Yeah.
owns the output? Like the user, the platform? No one. If I use AI to create art, music, writing,
Yeah.
my graphics, whatever, do I even own it?
Depends. I hate saying that, but it depends. The the thing is that for AI, so it parallels again to the crypto industry, right? Um, there was a very famous case. One of the early on set on cases of AI was very famous because it was a digital comic that I think they eventually turned into an NFT. I don't remember or not. And what happened was that the court said the comic, the wording in the comics, right? Like you own that. And that specific case, because there was enough human interaction, there was enough like human mindset behind the wording that the court
Mhm.
said, yes, you own that. Even though you used AI, you put enough input into that to own it, right? Because it has to
Yeah.
show some sort of human authorship to own a copyright, right?
Mhm.
And I'll explain the differences as well too. Um, but they said that the imagery they didn't own because they didn't put enough into the imagery to show proof of ownership. Right, exactly. It's crazy, right? So it's basically like what they were saying. It's like when you did the prompts, right? You put enough prompt into the wording of the actual story of the book for us to know a human played a major part in this. But the images, you might have just said, I want this to look like this in the image of this, and that wasn't enough. So welcome to my world. What? What?
What? Wait,
Yeah,
what?
exactly. Yeah, that's a very famous case that it still has like ripple effects on people because of that. Because it's like, so then what the hell do you own? You know, and that's for a copyright.
Mhm.
There's three buckets of intellectual property. There's trademarks, there's copyrights, there's patents, right?
Mhm.
Think of it where the trademarks are the brand, it's the home, it's unscripted with Leslie, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the brand. You trademark the name, you trademark the logo. If you have a slogan, you trademark the slogan, right? You own
Okay.
that. The copyright is the show. The copyright is your transcript. The copyright is you are creating something under this brand, right? That's the
Okay.
copyright. A patent, it's like if you have a new way of doing something, if you have like this, I'm just grabbing random stuff on my desk, like Ray Bans, right? The
Mhm.
name Ray Ban, what am I doing? The name Ray Ban, right? Like that's a trademark, and the way that it's written out, that's a logo, right? But the actual Ray Ban with inside of this It's not, it's a patent because it's a design. It's a design of something. So it's not a name, right? It's a discovery. It's like I created this AI meta glasses and everything that makes the meta glasses work, it's a patent. So those three buckets we have in trademark law, in intellectual property law, to work with. How the technology interacts with those various areas, it's tricky, and it's where I live a lot in, and it keeps me up at night. Unfortunately, a lot about in too. Um, it goes back and forth depending on what you're talking about, because you could use artificial intelligence to create the name of a company and to create a logo, and you could trademark it, and it's
So,
not a problem
oh,
at
okay.
all.
I was just going to ask that. Okay, so say that I wanted to create a platform using AI, right?
Yeah.
To facilitate and make what I'm doing a little bit more efficient and effective.
Hold on, I lost you there. Wait, did I lose you?
Wait, I got disconnected. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah,
I'm
you're
not
just
sure
getting kind of in and
what
out.
happened.
Yeah, I hear you
I
now.
was like, okay. So my question is, based on what I'm doing and how I organize myself, I've used a lot of products like CRMs, live streaming, and trying to stay organized. And sometimes, one product doesn't work for everything. And say that I was creating something on AI to help me facilitate what I'm doing and help me become more effective and efficient,
Yeah,
and I wanted to patent that. But
probably not. Yeah,
because I'm using AI, I wouldn't
yeah.
be able to.
Most
That
likely
is
no.
wild.
Most likely no, because what the patent office will say is like, okay, but you didn't you didn't put the hammer to the nail. You just kind of told somebody to use the hammer on that nail. So therefore, I know it's ridiculous, but because like you didn't technically create the process, because you just kind of put it through a system, most likely no. Like from what I've understood, most likely no.
So anything that
Now,
anybody's doing like vibe coding and then they want to create an app and then it gets passed through, say, Apple or anything like that, the Apple store, whatnot.
yeah,
You
it
can't
depends.
patent that?
It depends. It depends. You can
Because
probably
what if
trade.
the app blows up?
Yeah, of course, right. But this is the deal with it. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So you can protect it in different ways. You can protect the name. You can protect the logo. You can do that type of stuff. But the actual coding, it's different because you're talking about coding basically, right? So
Yeah.
coding, it's not a coding is not a trademark protection. Coding is not really a patent protection. It's more in the copyright world. Now, what
Okay.
happens here, right? If you go and you can copyright that code, so you can do that. But remember, that is a public document. So the
Mm.
code becomes public, which means that anybody can use it to do something else with it, right? So you probably don't. So I always recommend we don't copyright that. But there is a thing called trade secrets. So trade secrets are like the secret sauce, right?
Mhm.
KFC's chicken, so, seasoning, whatever, which is probably I don't like KFC. I don't know why I put them up, but like Heinz ketchup, right? Like what they use to make their actual product, that's a trade secret. You put that in a safe. You every time you send it out, as far as you're telling people what you're doing, you put confidential on it. It's only specific people. As long as you consistently treat that as a secret, the thing that makes it work, right, which is the coding, then you're protected. You can't really patent it. You can't trademark it. You can trademark the name of the app. You can trademark the logo of the app. You can copyright the code, and you can't really patent. Depends, right? But there's a lot there that is still trying to figure out with AI. We haven't gone that deep into it yet. We really haven't,
Yeah.
you know. And there's going to be a lot of interesting cases that are going to pop out of this with the next 15 years that I'm super interested to see where that's going to go and what they're going to do with it, because it is a great question and we don't
Because
have
it
a lot
seems
of
like
answers.
and to me, I feel like people have a lot of ideas, right? And because
Yeah,
now they've made it so easy for people to execute those ideas, it's like
yeah.
we're literally training AI. Now, if an AI is trained on someone else's work, is that infringement?
Well, that's the great question. That's where it goes back to what you were just talking about, because it's like we can't. Even the people that Sam Altman has said this, he doesn't know how AI
Yeah.
really works, right? Like, so
What?
even us putting stuff into the AI, we don't know what it's really giving us and what we're really doing with it. Like, we don't really understand that. We just know it's doing something for us. But how many times have you gone to your AI and it's like, I don't, this is not what I wanted. Like, what are you doing? Right. So
Yeah.
it's like sometimes it just throws random stuff out. And sometimes what it does too, that frustrates the hell out. I curse at my AI sometimes. I get so mad. It's like you're just making up stuff. In my line of work, in my field, I can't make up anything, right? Like I gotta be on point. And
Yeah.
so I always now, every time I ask for some sort of guidance, maybe on something like the latest law that popped up or something like that, I always make sure that everything I put into my system is only on my desktop. It's only working by me. I make sure I don't put confidential information of clients. I keep it very general, right? Because of what you just said. I don't know who's training on what. I got I got scammed about a year ago. I realized it after, where I got an email from a through LinkedIn, and LinkedIn, somebody reached out to me and told me that they wanted to hire me to be. It was like 30 hours a week, part time, at like this X salary, working with founders for a specific thing, blah 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 blah. And I looked through the page, and it kind of looked shady, but it kind of didn't, and it kind of was trying to figure out who I know and what I know with them, making phone calls, and I saw we had some people in common. They didn't know them, so then I was like, well, yeah, what's the next step? Right. And they sent me this questionnaire. And so me going through it, I answered the questionnaire, and it wasn't nothing crazy. It was like information about me, but it wasn't like my social security. It was like, what do I think about this specific thing on law? Right. And how do I
Mhm.
handle this situation? And how have I handled this in the past? These are all things that you can search in Google. And I've already said it in public. So I wasn't concerned about it. But the minute I hit send and I send that document out, all of a sudden the person blocked me. All of a sudden they disappeared. So obviously I was scammed. But in the back of my head, I'm like, but what were you doing? Were you trying to train an AI model with my knowledge? Like it's such an interesting world that we live in, that I think AI is gonna hyper scam. I like We're gonna get scams in the next couple of years that you can't even think of. Like a good example is I had a friend here in Dominican Republic 2 years ago call me on. Everybody uses WhatsApp in Latin America, period. And
Yes.
yeah, even my doctor uses WhatsApp. Um, I had him call me on my. I get a phone call, and it's like a distorted image of him, right?
Mhm.
Like but this is a guy that doesn't call me, so that's why I was like, first of all, I find it weird. I picked it up because I thought it was an emergency, and it's like distorted. Like he's just like, oh, the signal is bad, right? And I'm like, okay, what's going on? How's everything? And he's like, oh, I need you to send me some money, right? And I'll send you where to send it to, blah blah blah. I'm in an emergency. I need a couple of $500 right now, blah 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 blah. And it's his voice. It's just a distorted image of him, but it's his voice. And so then I knew it was a scam immediately, because this guy got way more money than I do. So I'm like, there's no way in hell that he's asking me for $300, $500. Um, sure enough, I hung up. I reached out to him, and it was a scam. Somebody had cloned his number, and through WhatsApp, they were able to make these phone calls. They had to delete it. He had to get a whole new phone. And it's like, this was a couple of years ago. So think about what is it? The Will Smith, the eating spaghetti AI thing. Have you seen that? Where it's like when they
Oh,
first started, the video
yes.
with Will Smith eating spaghetti, like a couple of years ago, it was like some horrible distortion of him, and now
Yes.
it's like him sitting down eating spaghetti. It looks exactly like him, right? So what's going to happen in another 5 years? Where are we going to go? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Do you think that it's going to be easier for people to gain access into people's systems? Especially, have you heard of OpenClaw, the autonomous AI agent? That can do so many things for you: send emails, trade crypto, run code, control apps, like
Yeah.
all these automated workflows. I think I'm still in the dinosaur area where I'm very skeptical about that. And if I was ever to download that, it would be maybe on another computer where I don't do anything. But it's like, how comfortable should we even be allowing an autonomous AI to do that? Because I saw it all over the timeline and people were actually allowing it, downloading it, and doing so much stuff for it. And they're like, oh my God, my time is free. I'm like, aren't these AI agents going to take over us eventually and eliminate the humans?
There there was a there was a really good thread on X, and I still call it Twitter, on Twitter, couple of sometime this year, that one of my good friends sent it to me, and he's a founder in the crypto space, and it was another founder in the crypto space talking about a full, amazing, very well written thread. I mean, I don't read a lot of the long form threads on X at all. This is one of the few that I went through and I sat down and read it twice because he broke down how. Oh, it was wrecked. Matter of fact, it was wrecked. That's what it was. He broke down how he uses his workflow to basically minimize his team, minimize his spend, and then make money faster through all of the stuff that he does with the workflow, right? Through what you're talking about, automating everything, giving access to Claude to his entire system. And I went through the whole thing and I was super fascinated because it brings together this whole conversation we're having. It's a younger generation that is okay with giving their privacy up to technology, even though it's a business privacy. It's not a personal one. It's your business,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Allowing it to work on its own. He was putting checks. He did say he was putting checks in place. But I did go back and forth with him a little bit on Twitter because I'm like, I hope that you're using it only on your desktop and there's no access to the internet because you don't really want to give out all of your entire DNA of your company to the internet, man. Because like, so you just give up all your secrets, to the whole world, and it's like, how do you even do that? So I think that the access component to that, it's where as an attorney, I'm hypersensitive to it because I deal with confidential information every day.
Mhm.
And part of my keeping my license is to make sure that I don't spill that confidential information. So part of that is even when I'm using AI, being extremely careful with it and making sure that it doesn't save memory, it doesn't necessarily have access to a lot of the things that I don't want it to have access to. Um, but I just think that as society is changing and evolving, people are not going to give it. They're not going to care. They're going to do it more and more, and it's going to create more scams. Yeah, 100%.
That's part of also having everything so simplified for you, and that creates less laziness, but at the same token, it also frees up a lot of your time for you to be able to do other things. Pablo, I
Yeah.
know we've gone over the hour, and I mean, time flew by so quick. I just have a few more questions. Do you have time to do a 10 rapid fire question with me?
Sure. Let's do it. I'm scared, but let's do it. Let's do it. I'm
You're
ready to go.
scared. Okay, let's go for it. Okay. Ownership or opportunity?
Ooh, I knew this was going to be hard from the beginning. As much as I'm going against everything I just talked about, opportunity.
Legacy or lifestyle?
Legacy or lifestyle? Um, Legacy.
Bronx or Punta Cana?
Yo, why would you say that to me? I'm gonna have so many people mad at me, on either answer. Um, I'm gonna be political, and I'm gonna say Bronx for first 30 years of my life, Punta Cana last 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Build in silence or build in public?
Silence every day. Silence.
Risk it all or play it safe?
Risk it all the way.
Culture or capital?
Culture, culture, 1,000%.
Early grind or late success?
Late success.
Protect the brand or grow the brand faster?
Um, Protect the brand.
Fear or faith?
Faith, faith, all the time. Faith.
One word to describe your journey.
Um, Unconventional.
Unconventional, yes. I do have another question. If someone watching tonight, anyone in the audience feels overlooked, underestimated, or behind, what would you say to them?
I would say that there's a lot of there's a lot of history behind all of us. We all have our own journeys.
Hmm.
Um, we are just the results of the decisions of our ancestors, and all of those decisions were made to bring you to the place you are. And you have to also think what decisions you're going to make to put the people after you in a place that you want them to be. And we have to be more conscious of those decisions for the future as opposed to just looking right in front of us. I'm always trying to look 10 years as opposed to looking what's happening right now.
I like that. And for everyone watching tonight, or anybody that's going to be watching or replaying the show, tonight wasn't just about trademarks or business. It was about ownership in its truest form. Your name, your story, your identity, a reminder that what you build means nothing if you don't protect it. And more importantly, if you don't believe you deserve to own it. Pablo, do you have any parting words of wisdom for us?
Very proud of you. This is a great show. I still have a picture that we took some time ago in New York with like your little selfie, like
The
ramp
selfie
thing
light that I always
that
carry.
yeah, yeah, it's like one of the best pictures in my life. I was like, wow, this is amazing. So
I still
I think
have
about
that.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I still think about that. Very proud of you, and keep it going. This was definitely not the interview that I expected. So I'm very happy that it came out the way it came out.
Well, I am so thankful, Pablo. I know that I told you I didn't think you were going to say yes. I know you're a busy man. You're doing so much. I am so proud of what you've been doing to the last few years. I do want to thank you for showing us what it looks like to evolve, for being you, to lead with purpose and to move forward. Y como decimos, siempre pa'lante.
Siempre, siempre para adelante. It's the only way to go. Nowhere else.
Siempre pa'lante.
Awesome.
Again, Pablo, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing more of you, maybe one of the conferences, having you back on the show.
I'm back on the
Muchas
scene.
gracias
Back
again.
on the scene. You never know. We never know. I'm
Back
gonna
on the
pop up.
scene. Sí. Gracias, amigo querido. And
Okay.
for everybody watching, I'm Leslie Mota, and stay unscripted, everybody. Buenas noches, Pablo.
Buenas noches.